Hello, everyone. Before we dive into our exciting story, I'd love to know where you're all watching from. Drop a comment and let me know. Imagine a world where everything seems perfect. A handsome, rich man, deeply in love, ready to marry the woman of his dreams. He has a wonderful mother and a sweet little daughter who means the world to him. But sometimes, even in the brightest sunshine, there are dark clouds hidden away. Our story begins with Michael, a man who built his empire from the ground up. He wasn't born with a silver spoon. He worked tirelessly, with sweat and determination, to become the successful billionaire he is today. Michael was known not just for his wealth, but for his kind heart and generous spirit. He always remembered where he came from and believed in helping others. He had a soft spot for his mother, Clara, who raised him with love and taught him the value of honesty and hard work. Clara was a gentle soul, always smiling, always offering a warm hug. Michael's greatest joy, however, was his precious daughter, Lily, a bright-eyed, curious 6-year-old with a laugh that could melt any heart. Lily was the light of his life, and he always made sure she felt loved and protected. Michael had recently found what he thought was true love with a beautiful woman named Jessica. Jessica was charming, elegant, and seemed to care deeply for Michael and even for Lily and Clara. Or so he thought. They had been together for 2 years, and now they were engaged, planning a grand wedding that everyone in their social circle was buzzing about. Michael felt like the luckiest man in the world. He believed Jessica was the perfect addition to his family, someone who would bring even more warmth and happiness into their lives. He adored her, trusted her completely, and couldn't wait to spend the rest of his life with her. One sunny afternoon, Michael decided to surprise his family. He had been away on a business trip for a week and missed them terribly. He pictured Lily running into his arms, Clara's warm embrace, and Jessica's delighted smile. He arrived home earlier than expected, wanting to create a special moment. As he quietly entered the grand foyer of his mansion, a strange sound reached his ears. Not the joyful sound he expected, but a muffled whimper in a harsh, low voice. Curiosity piqued and a slight knot of unease forming in his stomach. Michael followed the sound, which led him toward the backyard patio, a place usually filled with laughter and sunlight. He pushed open the patio door just a crack, his heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and an inexplicable dread. The scene that unfolded before his eyes made his blood run cold, freezing him in place. There on the pristine patio stood Jessica, not with a loving smile, but with a cruel smirk twisting her beautiful face. In her hands, she held a large bucket, and with a sickening, deliberate motion, she poured the dark, murky contents of that bucket directly over Clara, Michael's dear mother, who was sitting in a wheelchair, her shoulders shaking, her head bowed in humiliation. Lily, Michael's sweet daughter, stood beside Clara, tears streaming down her face, her small hands clutching her grandmother's arm, as if trying to shield her from the disgusting deluge. The dirty water, thick with mud and what looked like kitchen scraps, dripped from Clara's hair, staining her clothes and pooled around her feet. Jessica then let out a chilling, almost triumphant laugh, a sound Michael had never heard from her before. "That's what you get, you old hag," she spat, her voice laced with venom, a stark contrast to the sweet tones he knew. "And you," she sneered at Lily, "stop crying, you brat. You're just as useless as your grandmother." Michael's world shattered into a million pieces. The woman he loved, the woman he was going to marry, was a monster. His heart felt like it had been ripped from his chest and stomped on. He stood frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. The image burned into his mind. How could this be happening? The kind, loving Jessica was a cruel tormentor, and his mother and daughter were suffering at her hands, right in his own home. What was he going to do? Michael's mind raced back to how he and Jessica had met. It was at a charity gala, an event he hosted every year to raise money for children's hospitals. Jessica had approached him, elegant in a shimmering gown, her eyes sparkling with what he thought was genuine interest in his work. She spoke passionately about her desire to help others, volunteering her time at local shelters and her love for family. Michael, a man who valued integrity and compassion above all else, was instantly drawn to her. He saw her as a kindred spirit, someone who shared his values and understood his vision for a better world. Their relationship blossomed quickly. Jessica was always attentive, showering him with compliments, and seemingly doting on Lily and Clara. She would bring Clara flowers, read stories to Lily, and even cook Michael's favorite meals. Michael's friends and family, including his trusted personal assistant Sarah, had initially been wary, cautioning him to take things slow. Sarah, a sharp and observant woman who had been with Michael for years, had a knack for seeing through facades. She had once gently suggested that Jessica seemed a little too perfect, almost as if she were playing a role. But Michael, blinded by love and convinced he had found his soulmate, had dismissed her concerns as mere protectiveness. He believed they just needed to get to know Jessica better. He remembered a time, early in their relationship, when Lily had accidentally spilled juice on Jessica's expensive dress. Jessica had smiled, brushed it off, and insisted it was no big deal, even comforting a tearful Lily. Michael had seen this as a sign of her gentle nature and loving heart. Now, seeing her true colors, he realized it was all an act, a carefully constructed performance designed to win his trust and affection. The memory of that spilled juice incident now twisted in his stomach, a bitter taste in his mouth. He felt like a fool, completely fooled by her deception. The days leading up to his business trip had been hectic. Michael had been working tirelessly, often returning home late. He'd entrusted Jessica with looking after Clara and Lily, especially since Clara had been recovering from a minor fall and needed some extra care. Jessica had assured him she would take excellent care of them, promising to spend quality time with them while he was away. He had left feeling confident, believing his family was in safe, loving hands. How wrong he had been. He thought about the small, almost imperceptible changes he had noticed since Jessica moved in. Clara seemed a little quieter, her usual cheerful demeanor sometimes replaced with a distant look. Lily, too, had been clingier, often seeking comfort from her father or hiding behind Clara when Jessica was around. Michael had attributed it to the general upheaval of a new person in the house, or perhaps just a phase. He had asked Clara if everything was all right, and she had always smiled weakly, assuring him that everything was fine, not want to burden him. He now realized her silence was a shield, a protective mechanism to hide the abuse from him. Michael had always prided himself on his ability to read people, to understand their true intentions. He had built his business empire by trusting his instincts. Yet with Jessica, his instincts had been completely wrong. He felt a wave of shame wash over him for not seeing it sooner, for allowing his mother and daughter to endure such cruelty under his own roof. The vision of Jessica pouring the dirty water, her hateful words, and his family's terrified faces replayed in his mind, a horrifying loop. He clenched his fists, his knuckles turning white. The gentle, kind Michael was gone, replaced by a storm of fury and betrayal. He wanted to storm out, to confront Jessica, to unleash all his anger on her. But something held him back. He looked at Lily, still sobbing, clinging to Clara, and a different kind of resolve settled over him. He needed to be smart, to understand the full extent of this horror, and to protect his family. He took a deep, shaky breath, trying to calm the raging tempest within him. He couldn't just burst in. If he did, Jessica might try to deny it, to manipulate the situation, or even worse, escalate her cruelty towards Clara and Lily in his absence. He needed proof. He needed to understand why. And he needed to ensure that Jessica would never, ever be able to hurt his family again. Stealthily, Michael pulled his phone from his pocket, his fingers trembling slightly. He knew his mansion had a sophisticated security system, complete with discreet cameras strategically placed throughout the property, including the patio. He had installed them for his family's safety, never imagining he would use them to uncover a betrayal of this magnitude. He began recording, hoping to capture the continuing ordeal. He needed solid evidence, undeniable proof of Jessica's true nature. He watched for another agonizing minute as Jessica continued to berate Clara and Lily. "You two are just drains on Michael's money," she hissed, her voice dripping with disdain. "Once I'm married to him, you'll both be out of here. He won't need either of you anymore." She then walked over to Clara, grabbed a handful of her wet hair, and yanked it, forcing Clara's head up. Clara cried out in pain, a small, choked sound that tore through Michael's heart. Lily let out a terrified shriek, trying to push Jessica's hand away, but Jessica easily shoved the little girl back, causing Lily to stumble and fall. Michael's vision blurred with rage. He was about to burst through the door, consequences be damned, when Jessica suddenly stopped. She glanced nervously around, as if sensing something, then released Clara's hair. "That's enough for today," she said, her voice still harsh, but with a hint of caution. "Now clean this mess up, both of you. And if you tell Michael a single word about this, you'll regret it." With that, she turned and walked back inside the house, her elegant stride belying the ugliness of her actions. Clara, still wet and shivering, tried to comfort Lily, pulling her into a shaky hug. Lily buried her face in her grandmother's shoulder, her small body racked with sobs. Michael watched as his elderly mother, with trembling hands, tried to wipe the dirty water from her face, her eyes filled with unshed tears. He saw the defeat in her posture, the fear in Lily's eyes. A cold, hard resolve settled in Michael's heart. Jessica had just made the biggest mistake of her life. He would not let this stand. He would protect his family, no matter what it took. He knew he couldn't confront her now, not with Clara and Lily still in such a vulnerable state. He had to be strategic, to think clearly. He closed the patio door ever so gently, his mind already formulating a plan. He had to act quickly, but also carefully, to expose Jessica and ensure she faced the consequences of her cruelty. He deleted the initial video and began recording again, needing a cleaner shot, and then made his way to his home office, his heart a heavy stone in his chest. He needed to review the security footage, to confirm his worst fears, and to gather all the evidence he could. This was far from over. Michael moved with quiet urgency, his steps almost silent as he made his way to a secure home office. His mind was a whirlwind of anger, disbelief, and a profound sense of failure. How could he have been so blind? How could he have allowed this viper into his home, into his family's lives? The image of Jessica's cruel smirk, the dirty water, Clara's bowed head, and Lily's terrified sobs replayed in his mind, each loop twisting the knife deeper. He felt a burning need for answers, for understanding, but more than that, a ferocious need to protect his loved ones and ensure Jessica would never harm another soul again. He entered his office, a sleek room filled with advanced technology, and immediately accessed the mansion's sophisticated surveillance system. His hands, usually steady and confident, trembled slightly as he navigated the interface, rewinding the footage from the patio cameras. He wanted to see everything, every hateful glance, every cruel word, every act of torment. He needed to understand the full scope of Jessica's depravity. The video started playing. Michael watched, his breath catching in his throat, as Jessica approached Clara and Lily. He saw the initial coldness in her eyes, the way she spoke to them, not with the warm, affectionate tone she used with him, but with a condescending sneer. Then came the bucket, the sickening splash, Clara's whimper, and Lily's cry. Michael clenched his jaw, his muscles taut. He watched as Jessica grabbed Clara's hair, heard her venomous words, saw her push Lily. Each moment was a fresh stab to his heart. It wasn't just a sudden outburst. It was a calculated act of cruelty, meant to humiliate and terrorize. He fast-forwarded through the day's footage, then rewound to the past few days, and then even further back. What he saw made his blood run cold. There were other incidents, smaller, more subtle at first, but gradually escalating. Jessica subtly sabotaging Clara's wheelchair brakes so she'd struggle, accidentally spilling hot coffee near Lily, speaking to Clara and Lily with thinly veiled threats and insults when she thought no one was listening. He saw her deliberately ignore Clara's calls for help, leaving her struggling to reach something. He saw her snatch toys from Lily, telling her she was too old for them. It was a pattern of psychological and emotional abuse, slowly chipping away at their spirits. Michael felt a profound guilt wash over him. All those little things he dismissed, all the subtle shifts in Clara's and Lily's moods, were now horribly clear. He had been so consumed by his work, by his own perceived happiness with Jessica, that he had overlooked the cries for help disguised as quiet sadness. He felt a primal roar building in his chest, a desire to smash something, to unleash his fury. But he knew he couldn't. He had to be calm, calculated. He downloaded all the relevant footage, securing it on an encrypted drive. This wasn't just about anger. It was about justice. His next call was to Sarah, his trusted personal assistant. Sarah answered on the second ring, her voice crisp and professional. "Michael, you're back early. Is everything all right?" "No. Sarah, nothing is all right," Michael said, his voice raspy, barely recognizable even to himself. "I need you to do something for me, immediately and discreetly. I need you to find a temporary, safe place for my mother and Lily, somewhere secure where Jessica can't find them, and I need it done today." Sarah, who knew Michael better than almost anyone, picked up on the grave urgency in his voice. "Michael, what's happened? Is everyone okay?" she asked, a note of concern replacing her usual professional tone. "I can't explain everything now, Sarah. Just know that Clara and Lily are not safe here with Jessica. I need them moved. As soon as you have a location, I'll arrange transport. I'm going to tell them I have to leave again for an urgent, last-minute business trip, and that they'll be going to stay with a distant relative for a few days for their safety while I'm gone. I need this to be completely confidential. Not a word to anyone, especially not to Jessica." Sarah, sensing the gravity of the situation, didn't ask further questions. "Consider it done, Michael. I'll call you back within the hour with options." "Thank you, Sarah," Michael replied, the words thick with emotion. "You're a lifesaver." As he hung up, Michael knew he had to face Clara and Lily. He had to reassure them, to tell them he loved them, and to apologize for not seeing what was happening. He took a few deep breaths, trying to compose himself, to wipe away the rage from his face and replace it with calm determination. He couldn't let them see how broken he was. They needed him to be strong. He found Clara in the living room, quietly dabbing at a stain on her dress with a tissue. Lily was curled up on the sofa next to her, clutching a worn teddy bear, her eyes red-rimmed and distant. The sight broke Michael's heart anew. He walked over, his heart aching, and knelt before them. "Mom, Lily," he said softly, his voice gentle. They both looked up, startled. Lily gasped, then immediately burrowed her face into Clara's side, as if expecting Michael to be angry with them. Clara's eyes widened slightly in surprise, then quickly filled with fear. "Michael, what are you doing here? I thought you were on your trip." Her voice was shaky. "I came back early, Mom," he said, taking Clara's hand, his thumb gently stroking the back of it. "And I saw what happened on the patio." Clara's face paled, and she quickly looked away, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh, Michael, please don't be angry. It's nothing. Just a little accident." She tried to force a weak smile, but her lips trembled. Michael shook his head, his own eyes burning. "Don't you dare say that, Mom. It wasn't an accident. And I'm not angry with you or Lily. I'm angry with myself for not seeing it sooner, for letting her hurt you both." He reached out and gently stroked Lily's hair. "Lilybug, my brave girl, are you okay?" Lily slowly lifted her head, her big, brown eyes filled with confusion and fear. "Daddy? Jessica, see?" She trailed off, unable to articulate the cruelty. "I know, sweetie. I know," Michael whispered, pulling both his mother and daughter into a tight hug. He held them close, inhaling the scent of his family, feeling their warmth, and promising himself silently that he would never let anyone hurt them again. "I'm so sorry, both of you. So sorry." Clara, still shaken, finally allowed herself to cry, leaning into her son's embrace. "We didn't want to worry you, Michael. She said if we told you, things would get worse." "She won't hurt you ever again, I promise," Michael vowed, his voice firm. "I'm going to make sure of it. But for now, I need you both to be brave for a little longer. Sarah's finding a safe place for you to go, just for a few days, while I deal with this. It'll be like a little vacation, a secret mission. Okay, Lily? Just you and Grandma." "No, Jessica." Lily, though still tearful, looked up at her father. "No, Jessica?" "No, Jessica," Michael confirmed, giving her a reassuring squeeze. "And when you come back, she won't be here anymore." He needed them out of the house, away from any potential confrontation, and safe from Jessica's manipulative presence. Just then, his phone buzzed. It was Sarah. Michael excused himself for a moment, stepping out of earshot. "Sarah?" "I've found a place, Michael," Sarah reported. "A beautiful, secluded guest house on a private estate a few hours upstate. It's discreet, fully staffed, and very secure. They cater to high-profile clients seeking privacy. I've arranged for a private car to pick them up in an hour. It's under a different name, of course." "Perfect, Sarah. Thank you. Tell the driver they'll be meeting a relative there, and to be absolutely charming and reassuring. And make sure the guest house staff understand the need for utmost discretion." "Already handled," Sarah confirmed. "Anything else?" "Yes," Michael said, his voice hardening. "Start digging into Jessica's background. Every detail. Her finances, her past relationships, her family, anything. I want to know everything about her. And I want to know why she came into my life." "On it," Sarah replied, her voice now completely serious. She understood the unspoken implication of Michael's request. Michael went back to Clara and Lily, his plan now set in motion. He explained that a special car would take them on an adventure to a beautiful new place. He packed a small bag for each of them, making sure to include Lily's favorite teddy bear and Clara's essential medicines. He hugged them both tightly before the car arrived, whispering reassuring words. As the sleek black car pulled away, carrying his most precious treasures to safety, Michael watched until it was out of sight. A profound sense of relief washed over him, quickly followed by a cold, simmering fury. Now that his family was safe, he could fully unleash the storm on Jessica. He returned to the empty mansion, the silence echoing with the recent pain. He went back to his office, reviewing the footage of Jessica again, his anger solidifying into a cold, determined resolve. He couldn't believe he had been so blind. How could a person put on such an elaborate act? He needed to understand the why. What was her motive? He decided to stay in the office, waiting for Jessica to reappear. He needed to be calm, to play his part, to lure her into a false sense of security before he made his move. He knew she would be looking for him, expecting his return from his trip. A few hours later, as dusk began to settle, Michael heard Jessica's light footsteps approaching the office door. He quickly closed the surveillance footage, leaning back in his chair, trying to appear relaxed, as if he had just finished some work. Jessica opened the door, a dazzling smile gracing her lips. "Michael, you're back. Oh, darling, I missed you so much." She rushed over, wrapping her arms around him, pressing a kiss to his lips. Her act was flawless, her embrace warm, her eyes seemingly filled with genuine affection. Michael felt a wave of disgust, a cold shiver running down his spine, but he forced himself to return her hug, to play along. "Hello, Jessica," he said, trying to keep his voice even, though it felt like shattered glass in his throat. "I finished my trip earlier than expected. Where are Mom and Lily?" Jessica pulled away, a slight frown creasing her brow, an excellent show of concern. "Oh, Michael, darling, I'm so sorry. Your mother," she suddenly felt very unwell, and Lily was quite distressed. "I tried to reach you, but your phone was off. I called Dr. Miller, and he recommended they go to a specialized clinic for a few days of observation and rest. I've arranged for them to stay there in a private suite where they'll get the best care. I just didn't want to worry you on your trip." Michael stared at her, an icy calm settling over him. Her lie was so elaborate, so smooth, almost convincing. But he knew the truth. He knew the clinic was a fabrication, a cover for their absence, designed to deflect any suspicion. "A clinic?" Michael repeated, feigning concern, his eyes narrowing imperceptibly. "Which clinic? And why didn't you mention this earlier?" Jessica bit her lip, looking genuinely distressed. "Oh, Michael, I just wanted you to focus on your work. It's the Haven Clinic, darling. Very exclusive. They insisted on complete privacy. I have the details if you want them." She rattled off a plausible-sounding name and address, clearly having prepared her story. Michael nodded slowly, pretending to digest the information. "I see. And you've been here alone all day?" "Yes, darling, just missing you," she said, her eyes wide and innocent. It's been so quiet without them, especially Lily. I tried to keep myself busy, but it just wasn't the same. Michael knew she was trying to gauge his reaction, to see if he suspected anything. He had to be careful. He smiled, a thin, tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. Well, it's good to be back. I have a lot of work to catch up on, but I'm glad you're here. He gestured vaguely at his desk. I suppose I'll be in here for a while. Jessica's smile brightened. Of course, darling. I'll order us some dinner then. Something special to celebrate your return. She gave him a quick, affectionate squeeze and then left the office, humming a cheerful tune. As the door clicked shut, Michael's facade crumbled. He slammed his fist on the desk, a silent roar of fury escaping his lips. She was a master manipulator, a cruel actress, and he had almost fallen for it again. But not this time. The game was on, and Michael was going to ensure Jessica's downfall was spectacular and complete. He would expose her for the monster she was, not just to him, but to the entire world. And he would start by setting a trap, a meticulous plan to catch her in her web of lies and deceit. He needed to reveal her true nature, not just to himself, but to anyone who might still believe her innocent facade. This was going to be a battle of wits, and Michael was ready to win. The following morning, Michael woke up early, his mind already sharp with purpose. He had spent most of the night planning, refining his strategy. He needed to expose Jessica, but he also needed to ensure she couldn't escape justice or retaliate against him or his family. This wasn't just about ending an engagement. It was about protecting his loved ones from a dangerous individual. He made his way to the kitchen, where Jessica was already preparing breakfast, humming a cheerful tune. She turned, her face lighting up. "Good morning, my love. I thought I'd make your favorite pancakes." Michael forced a smile. "Good morning, Jessica. They smell wonderful." He sat down at the large breakfast island, watching her every move, searching for any telltale signs, any crack in her perfect facade. She seemed so normal, so loving. It was terrifying how easily she could switch. "I was thinking," Michael began, his voice casual, "since Mom and Lily are at that clinic, and it's just the two of us, maybe we should have a small, intimate dinner party tonight? Just a few close friends. It would be a nice way to celebrate my return and our upcoming wedding." Jessica's eyes sparkled. "Oh, Michael, that's a wonderful idea. I'd love that. Who should we invite?" "Just a few," Michael said, listing off a couple of their mutual acquaintances, but also including his lawyer, Mr. Thompson, and Sarah, his assistant. He knew Sarah would be a crucial ally in this. "And perhaps we could make a little toast to Mom and Lily. Send them our best wishes for a speedy recovery." Jessica's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, a tiny flicker of annoyance in her eyes, quickly replaced by her usual charm. "Of course, darling. That's a lovely thought. I'll get started on the arrangements." She was playing her part beautifully, completely unaware that she was walking directly into Michael's trap. As the day progressed, Michael made sure to act as normally as possible. He spent time in his office, pretending to work, while secretly coordinating with Sarah. Sarah was already making significant progress in her investigation into Jessica's background. She found discrepancies, gaps in her story, and a suspiciously large amount of debt from previous, failed business ventures. Jessica also had a history of charming wealthy men, only to leave them after acquiring significant financial gains. The picture emerging was not a loving fiancée, but a calculated gold digger. Meanwhile, Jessica was bustling around the mansion, excitedly making preparations for the dinner party. She ordered catering, arranged flowers, and even chose a stunning gown to wear. Michael watched her, a knot of dread mixed with grim satisfaction tightening in his stomach. He was disgusted by her performance, but also knew it would make her downfall even more impactful. As the evening approached, the first guest began to arrive. Mr. Thompson, Michael's stern and observant lawyer, was among them, along with Sarah, who gave Michael knowing, almost imperceptible nod. Jessica greeted everyone with her usual warmth and grace, playing the role of the perfect hostess. She spoke about Michael's generous spirit, her love for his family, and her excitement for their future together. Michael watched her, maintaining a polite, neutral expression, but inside his resolve was iron. Dinner was served, and the conversation flowed easily, mostly about business and social events. Jessica was radiant, laughing at Michael's jokes, holding his hand, acting every inch the loving partner. Michael felt a chilling disconnect, observing her as if she were a character in a play, not the woman he was supposed to marry. Finally, the moment arrived. After the main course, as dessert was being served, Michael stood up, clinking his fork against his glass. The chatter in the room died down, and all eyes turned to him. "Thank you all for coming tonight," Michael began, his voice clear and steady. "It means a great deal to Jessica and me to have our closest friends here to celebrate. As you know, we are looking forward to our wedding and to building a beautiful future together." He glanced at Jessica, who beamed at him, completely oblivious. "But tonight, I also wanted to make a special toast. As most of you know, my dear mother, Clara, and my sweet daughter, Lily, are not with us tonight. They are currently at the Haven Clinic, recovering from a sudden illness, and we wish them a speedy return." Jessica smiled, a picture of sympathetic concern. Michael continued, his voice now gaining a subtle edge that only Sarah and Mr. Thompson seemed to pick up on. "I wanted to share something with all of you tonight, something that has been weighing heavily on my heart. I've always believed in honesty and kindness, and in seeing people for who they truly are. And sometimes the truth can be quite shocking." He paused, letting his words hang in the air. Jessica's smile wavered for a split second, a tiny flicker of unease in her eyes, but she quickly recovered, looking at him with what she hoped was reassuring affection. Michael took a deep breath, his gaze sweeping across the faces of his guests, then finally landing on Jessica, his eyes cold and unwavering. "Before I make this toast," Michael continued, "I want to share a recent, very personal experience, one that has opened my eyes to the true nature of deception and cruelty. It involves someone in this room, and it involves the safety and well-being of my family." A palpable tension filled the room. Guests exchanged nervous glances. Jessica's face was still plastered with a smile, but her eyes darted around, a hint of genuine worry finally beginning to cloud her features. She looked at Michael, a question forming on her lips, but he cut her off, his voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "Jessica," Michael said, his voice hard, devoid of any warmth, "I believe you have something to tell us about Clara and Lily's stay at the Haven Clinic. Or perhaps something about the dirty water you poured on my mother and daughter yesterday." The words hung in the air like a sudden clap of thunder. Jessica's face drained of all color, her eyes widening in horror. The perfect facade she had maintained for so long shattered into a million pieces. The guests gasped, some leaning forward, others recoiling in shock. The room was plunged into a stunned silence, punctuated only by the faint clinking of cutlery from a kitchen. Jessica stared at Michael, her mouth agape, her eyes now filled with pure, unadulterated terror. The game was up. The silence in the grand dining room was suffocating, thick with disbelief and tension. Jessica's face, moments ago radiant with feigned happiness, was now a ghastly shade of white. Her mouth worked, but no sound came out, only a choked gasp. Her eyes, wide and wild, darted from Michael to the shocked faces of the guests, then back to Michael, pleading and terrified. The image of a cornered animal flashed through Michael's mind. "What are you talking about, Michael?" Jessica finally managed to stammer, her voice barely a whisper, laced with a desperate attempt at indignation. "How could you say such a thing? Are you feeling unwell? Is this some kind of cruel joke?" She tried to muster a look of hurt, but her trembling hands and dilated pupils betrayed her. Michael didn't flinch. His gaze was like ice, unwavering. "It's no joke, Jessica, and I'm feeling perfectly clear-headed. What I saw yesterday, what I recorded, leaves no room for doubt. You poured dirty water on my mother, humiliated her in her wheelchair, and terrorized my daughter. You then lied to my face, concocting a story about a clinic to cover their disappearance." He gestured to Mr. Thompson, who calmly produced a tablet. "Mr. Thompson has evidence, Jessica, undeniable evidence. The security footage from the patio, detailing your cruelty. And Sarah here," he nodded toward his assistant, "has uncovered a rather extensive history of your less than honest dealings." Sarah stepped forward, her expression serious. Jessica, my investigation reveals a pattern of behavior similar to what Michael has described. A history of financial instability, significant debts, and relationships with wealthy individuals that often ended with substantial financial gain for you. There's no record of you volunteering at any of the charities you claimed, and the Haven Clinic you mentioned, it doesn't exist. The collective gasp from the guests was louder this time. Murmurs erupted, whispers of, "Oh my God," and "I can't believe it." Jessica, realizing her carefully constructed world was crumbling around her, finally snapped. Her composure vanished, replaced by a raw, desperate fury. "This is a setup," she shrieked, her voice echoing through the room. "You're trying to ruin me, Michael. You're trying to get out of the wedding. I loved you. I loved Lily and Clara. This is all lies." She stood up abruptly, knocking her chair backward with a loud clatter. Her eyes blazed, no longer hiding the malice Michael had glimpsed on the patio. "Loved us." Michael scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping him. "You showed your love by terrorizing an elderly woman and a child? By pouring dirty water on my mother and calling her an old hag? By threatening my daughter and pushing her to ground? That's not love, Jessica. That's pure, unadulterated cruelty. You don't understand." Jessica screamed, her voice shrill. "They were in the way, always there, always needing something. Michael, you were always so busy with them, with your kindness and your charities. I needed your attention. I needed you to see me." She stomped her foot like a petulant child, revealing a deep-seated selfishness and entitlement. "I saw you, Jessica," Michael said, his voice cold and cutting. "I saw you for exactly who you are. A selfish, manipulative monster who preyed on my family." He turned to the guests, his voice clear and resonant. "I apologize for exposing you all to this, but I felt it was crucial that everyone here understood the true character of the woman I almost married. This isn't just about a broken engagement. It's about exposing a dangerous individual who sought to exploit and harm my family for her own gain." Mr. Thompson stepped forward, addressing Jessica directly. "Jessica, the evidence against you is substantial. Michael has recordings, eyewitness testimony from the household staff who also saw your behavior, and a comprehensive report on your fraudulent background. Michael will not only be ending this engagement, but he will also be pressing charges for emotional distress, harassment, and potentially elder abuse and child endangerment. I advise you to cooperate." Jessica's bravado crumbled. She looked around frantically, her gaze landing on the various faces, all of them filled with disgust and condemnation. There was no escape. She was exposed, utterly and completely. Her carefully crafted image, her future of wealth and luxury, had vanished in an instant. You can't do this," she whimpered, her voice losing its edge of fury and becoming laced with fear. "I'll lose everything." "You already have, Jessica," Michael said, his voice devoid of any pity. "You lost at the moment you decided to hurt the people I love. You lost it when you chose cruelty over kindness and deceit over honesty." Two security guards, discreetly summoned by Sarah earlier, entered the dining room. Mr. Thompson nodded to them. "Jessica, these gentlemen will escort you out of the premises. I suggest you go quietly." Jessica stared at the guards, then back at Michael, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and a lingering hatred. She knew there was no point in resisting. She had been caught, utterly, completely. She was led away, her head held low, the silence of the room punctuated by her retreating, shuddering sobs. The perfect fiancée, the charming socialite, was gone, replaced by a humiliated, broken woman facing the consequences of her heinous actions. As the door closed behind Jessica and the guards, a collective sigh of relief swept through the room. The guests, though still shaken, began to murmur, some coming forward to offer Michael their condolences and support. "Michael, I'm so sorry," one of his friends said, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "We had no idea." "None of us did," Michael replied, feeling a profound weariness settle over him. She was a master at disguise. "But what matters now is that my mother and daughter are safe." He looked at Sarah and Mr. Thompson. "Thank you both. I truly appreciate your help in all of this." Mr. Thompson nodded. "It's what we're here for, Michael. We'll start legal proceedings first thing tomorrow. There will be no leniency. Sarah added, I'll continue to monitor her, Michael, and ensure she can't cause any further trouble. The guests eventually dispersed, leaving Michael alone in the now quiet dining room. He felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The anger still simmered, but it was now overshadowed by profound emotional toll of the betrayal. He had trusted her, had loved her, and she had tried to destroy his family. The pain of that realization was immense. He thought of Clara and Lily, safe but undoubtedly traumatized. He knew his immediate priority was their healing. He decided to call them the moment he was sure Jessica was completely gone. He spent the rest of the evening in his office, talking with Mr. Thompson and Sarah about the legal strategy. He wanted every angle covered, every possibility of her escaping justice shut down. They discussed restraining orders, asset freezes, and the best way to ensure Jessica would never be able to contact him or his family again. Michael was adamant that she face the full extent of the law. He had to protect his family, not just from physical harm, but from emotional scarring. The next morning, Michael made a drive upstate to the secluded guest house where Clara and Lily were staying. He wanted to be the one to tell them Jessica was gone, to reassure them face to face. As he drove, the beautiful scenery, the rolling hills and lush trees, provided a much-needed sense of calm, but his heart still felt heavy. He pulled up to the charming, rustic guest house, nestled amidst a vibrant garden, and was greeted by a kind staff member who led him to their private suite. He opened the door to find Clara sitting on a plush armchair, reading to Lily, who was snuggled against her grandmother's side. The scene was peaceful, but a shadow of recent trauma still lingered in her eyes. When they saw Michael, Lily let out a joyful cry and ran into his arms. "Daddy, you're here!" she exclaimed, clinging to him tightly. "My brave little Lily bug," Michael whispered, hugging her close, tears pricking his eyes. He then turned to Clara, who rose slowly, a hopeful but cautious look on her face. "Michael, darling," Clara said, her voice soft. "Is everything—" "She's gone, Mom," Michael interrupted gently, taking her hands. "Jessica is gone. She's been exposed, and she'll never be able to hurt you or Lily again. I promise." Clara's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of immense relief. A shaky breath escaped her lips, and she finally allowed herself to truly relax. "Oh, Michael, thank God." She reached out and pulled him into a tight embrace, patting his back. "Thank you, my son. Thank you for protecting us." Lily, still in Michael's arms, looked up, her brow furrowed. "Jessica really won't come back?" "Never, sweetie," Michael reassured her, kissing the top of her head. "She's not a good person, and she's not allowed near us anymore. We're safe now." They spent the rest of the day together, talking, laughing, slowly beginning the process of healing. Michael listened patiently as Clara and Lily recounted the smaller acts of cruelty Jessica had inflicted on them over the past few months. The constant put-downs, the isolation, the subtle threats that had kept them silent. It broke Michael's heart to hear it all, but also solidified his resolve. He made sure they knew none of it was their fault, and that he should have seen it sooner. He apologized repeatedly, vowing to be more present, more watchful, and to never let his judgment be clouded again. That evening, as they shared a quiet dinner in their suite, a sense of peace finally began to settle over them. The immediate danger was gone, and the long road to recovery had begun. Michael knew it wouldn't be easy, but they would face it together, as a family. He watched Lily, who was now giggling as Clara told her a silly story, and felt a surge of love and gratitude. He had almost lost them, almost sacrificed their happiness and safety for a lie. He would never make that mistake again. As the sun set, casting a warm, golden glow through the window, Michael received a call from Sarah. Her voice was grave. "Michael, I have something else. Something disturbing. Jessica didn't just target you for your wealth, or because she was selfish. It goes deeper. I found an old photo, a very specific family photo, hidden in her personal belongings. A photo of your father, your mother, and a woman who looks remarkably like Jessica's mother. And then I found something even more shocking. A letter. It seems Jessica was sent by someone from your father's past, to get revenge on your family. Michael's blood ran cold. Revenge? On his family? This wasn't just about greed anymore. This was a vendetta. He gripped the phone, his mind racing, a new, chilling realization dawning on him. The extent of Jessica's deception was far deeper and far more sinister than he had ever imagined. His family was still in danger, not just from Jessica, but from whoever was pulling her strings. The initial relief he felt began to evaporate, replaced by a fresh wave of fear and a chilling sense of dread. This was an extreme event, one that threatened to unravel the very foundations of his family's past, and potentially their future. His fight was far from over. In fact, it had just begun,